Well, we're back with the final installment about the past, the present, and the future of the Center for Hebraic Thought. And we're going to be talking about the future, which is actually, we want to involve you all. And I want to mention how uncomfortable it is for me to talk directly to you, the audience, because if you've listened to this podcast before, you know that I talk to other people. That's the nature of it, is I'm looking at somebody talking to them. But I think this is a right time in our history to turn and look at the fourth wall and say, you, O listener, uh, especially from today, this topic that we want to talk about is, what do you want from us? What do you think we should be doing? What do you think we should be doing differently? We have such a gracious audience that I don't constantly get emails that say, you should have said this, you should have done this, you should have asked that person this. You do get emails that are helpful, but they're always in the helpful vein. And so we want to continue that, and we just want to put that call out there directly. And so I'm here with, again, the executive director of the Center for Thought, Mike Tolliver. And so, Mike, maybe you could talk about the different kinds of things that we're planning on doing, just as far as, you like the word modality, which us in the who are professors always laugh when administrators say modality. But the different forms that our content, and again, our content is the kinds of things that we think about and write about and talk about, what different forms they take and what we can do. So what can we do before we ask what should we do?
Yeah, so as everyone is familiar with this podcast, we create podcasts. And so we certainly have the ability to interview people, to distribute it in this manner, and kind of keep that going. In addition, we're going to create the video pairing. So as we record these with video, it can be distributed on YouTube as well. So for those folks that prefer to engage that content visually instead of just on their headphones.
Wait, is it possible that somebody is watching this on YouTube right now?
It is possible that they are watching this on YouTube right now.
Hello, I'm
Hello.
waving to all the
Surprise.
people on YouTube. Okay, so
Yeah.
this is a new iteration as well, because I have avoided video things my entire life. So here we are.
But we recognize that there are people who prefer to engage with this content in that way. And so this is for you too. So, something like an interview with an author who just had a book out, that you have questions about. That is obviously something that we can do using these formats. For those of you who have seen our scholarship on the Center for Hebraic Thought's website, that of course is also something that we do. And so those things you've already seen, and you probably have a sense of what can fit well there. One example we were talking about before for the scholarship articles would be something along the lines of demonstrating that Plato, who people think of as, this great philosopher, has a lot of religious components to his thought that need to be acknowledged and rarely are. Whereas Moses is frequently pigeonholed as being purely religious and having no philosophical component to his work. And we want to emphasize that both are there, and we can learn from and benefit from understanding both. So that's an example of the scholarship that we might do, as well as the kinds of audio content, video content that we are regularly creating. Now, in addition to that, we are wanting to create actually like highly packaged content for use in community groups, in a church setting, or at a Bible college or a seminary for the classroom setting. And so that's an example of new content that we're looking to develop. And so if you had a module at your Bible college on the philosophical thought of the ancient Near East, that might be a content that we could develop and would be really in our wheelhouse with the network of scholars that we have.
That would be on the Center for Hebraic Thought side, not the kind of popular outreach, the biblical mind, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
That would be more like the community group resources. So packaged 8-week course on the Hebraic thought of the New Testament, let's say. And, that would have audio recordings, video recordings, transcripts, worksheets, any number of things that would equip a community group with no background on their own in this content to dive deep and have a meaningful interaction with that content that would last for a lifetime. So, there's any number of different things that we could talk about, like, for instance, the significance of the Old Testament calendar for New Testament believers, right? That's often overlooked or unknown to the people in the pew, but it actually has a significant impact on the way you read, for instance, Revelation.
Mm-hmm.
And so that would make the book of Revelation that much more accessible to somebody who knew the Old Testament calendar.
Yeah, and I was just telling you off camera, I was at a conference at a Catholic university about the meaning of Catholic education, and it was interesting to hear that a lot of the answers there were sourced directly in Hellenistic Greek thought, even though some of them were reaching back to the Old Testament or reaching into Jesus's thinking as well. And so even something like, what do we think education is? What is it for? And we've talked a lot on both the podcast, and we've had a series of articles on why does the Bible focus so much on marginalized voices, and how should that affect our view of marginalized people today or marginalized communities? And then, we haven't talked about it yet on the podcast, but I'm always interested in the kind of like, should Christians get tattoos kind of questions, which I've actually, I've done entire workshops with church leadership on those kinds of questions, where we just walk through, well, what is the Hebraic thought, not of tattoos, but of body modification? And how does that get worked out? What is the body? What is the biblical view that gets worked out pretty consistently on body modification? And once you understand that, then you can start answering questions about the modern fad of tattooing oneself, right? And whether that's wise or not. Okay. So we welcome ideas on just who we should be talking to, who people would like to hear from, topics they would like to hear more about, questions. We do get a steady stream of people that ask questions. I will admit, though, when you go through the email, the admin email inbox where people want us to talk about something, it's often a hyper specific, is it the right hand of the priest that goes on the head of the animal first during the Day of Atonement when he lays his hand, So maybe more, not that that's not a good question, right? You have to work through, like, does that matter? And can we tell from the text? But yeah, also just the big questions, almost, the questions kids ask in Sunday school are often the kinds of questions that we still need to be addressing through the lens of Hebraic thought. Anything else we need to invite people to do? You can write your question on a $100 bill, just on that little white margin on the outside. So you have to write pretty small, and hopefully you have many questions, but one question per $100 bill. Put those in an envelope, and you can we'll give you an address later. You can mail those to.
Clever form of patronage that we've developed here. But yes, where should people, just through the HebraicThought.org website, send those? Can they comment on the podcast itself? What's the best way?
Yeah, so they can do two things. admin@HebraicThought.org is the email address, or they can go on the website and hit the contact button, and it'll take you to an email box there as well. I think there's also a give, right? So you can put in the message of the give button the question you have as well. Okay, anything else we need to talk about with the mic?
I think that's it.
Short and sweet.